All right. What is happening to my helicopter homies? I'm your guy, Halsey Schider with the Helicopter Podcast. And something that I've said before, and I will continue to say it, is the podcast has become so much more than I ever thought. And one of the coolest parts about that is this access that I now have in order to talk to some really cool people, talking to leaders of companies. And in this case, this is actually an MHM publishing collaboration celebrating the AS350 50-year anniversary. Vertical is going to be doing a big spread on it, and they want to include this podcast with Jerome Ronssin, the Light Helicopter Program Director for Airbus. And I'm just feeling so grateful and excited to have Jerome on the podcast, learning about his position, what he does at Airbus, and just talking about the A-Star and the evolution of the aircraft and what we're looking forward to and what we're excited about currently. So Jerome, welcome to the Helicopter Podcast. How are you?
Very good. Thank you, Halsey, for the opportunity of talking about those marvelous machines.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I just feel so lucky all the time. I love chatting about helicopters. I get a little nervous sometimes talking with people like you because double engineer degree, speaking multiple languages. Has this always been a passion for you? I mean, as a young person, was it your dream to be within aerospace? How did that kind of all happen?
To be honest, Halsey, I'm the one that is a little bit under pressure because if I'm not wrong, you have a lot more flight hours than I do on our own helicopters. But to more precisely answer your question, aviation has not been a passion since the beginning. And the very interesting thing that has been developing over the time. And the good news is that the more I work in this industry, the more I'm passionate about it. And it's even more true since I started with this new position. And as you mentioned, also the opportunity I have to meet with a lot of different people, with those people that are actually making, what is the aviation. So no, it's not been a passion since I'm born, but it's a true passion, and this is actually what is really driving me in my day-to-day job.
Yeah, it's so cool. I think it's very neat, and something that I feel lucky and excited about in my personal life is loving what I do. Whether it's my business, which sells and buys helicopters, or it's doing this podcast. I wake up every day and I'm excited to be doing what I'm doing. I can imagine working at Airbus and doing what you do is something that is probably fairly exciting, different day to day. For our listeners that may be unfamiliar, and for the host actually too, when I look at a title like the Light Helicopter Program Director, what does that actually mean? What does a typical day look like for you, and what is the role in kind of how you approach it?
Well, first of all, I can only confirm what you just mentioned. In this role, I have absolutely no issue to wake up in the morning and go to work. The program directorate, I think, can be compared, to use a kind of easy comparison, to what everybody knows, as a master of orchestra, as a conductor of orchestra. I think this is the comparison that we found when we want to describe the job to other people, that best describes what the job is. And what does it mean in the practice? In practice, it means that as a program director, you are no specialist. You're not supposed to be a specialist of a specific area of the company, whether it is design, production, procurement, sales, quality, finance. But still, you have to understand each and every part of the company. But like a conductor, you have to make sure that each and every department has the resources to play its own part the best way possible, but not individually. To play the best part, in a nice symphony with the rest of the entities of the company. So that's why I think that this is the best way to describe it, and it's a very passionate job, precisely because you are in the driving seat in terms of important decisions, in terms of product policy in particular, so evolution of the product, but also because you have an holistic view of what is the program, so what is the life of the product, and all the elements that make the product so successful and operational as it is today.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds incredible. You're orchestrating and moving all the pieces. Whether you're leading an orchestra or it's almost like you're a head coach of a team, right? And you're guiding your people into the directions that need to happen in order to have a successful outcome. I can imagine that there's definitely some high stress in that role. What is something that's challenging about your job? What's kind of the most challenging part for you in your position that you currently hold?
I think that the most challenging part is also the most interesting, and this is the DNA of the job. This is all about making decisions. And when you make decisions, you define priorities. When you make a decision, you go to choose in one direction, but then you don't go in another one. So this is where I think the highest challenge is to make sure that, from a program standpoint, we go through the right path. And to precisely decrease maybe the level of stress and make sure that, this challenge remains motivation, but not fall into the negative part of the stress. It's all about information first. So making sure that one has, access to the right information. So it's spending a lot of time with the people having the information internally or externally. So being knowledgeable about what we are doing. Then it's about also having a clear strategy and a clear idea on where we want to go. And then I think, to make it a little bit short and caricatural as well, beyond that, those hard skills, there is also a bit of soft skills. That is to say, the ability itself, to make the decision. And that is to say that once you decided to go into the one direction, to make sure that the whole system is going into this direction. So you have the typical soft skills of intercultural management, interdisciplinary management that are also here at stake. And so, as you mentioned earlier, when one is passionate about what when he's doing, definitely those challenges are rather thing as positive. This is the way I see them, as being part of the process, being part of the change of the aviation, rather than being a stressful process.
Yeah, I mean, it's being able to have that clear plan and executing it and feeling comfortable in that decision that probably helps kind of alleviate some of that stress. And I think some people can do it, and I don't think your position is for everyone. I think that it probably takes a unique individual to be able to be that conductor, to be that coach. And so I think your job sounds really cool. I would love to, if I'm ever able to come to Airbus and meet you and kind of hang out with you for a few days and kind of see what that looks like, because I feel like it would be fascinating. And, it's one thing, I'm very used to the helicopter pilot side of aviation. I'm the end user.
Yeah.
I'm the person that's getting to reap the reward of all your hard work and even your stress. And so it would be really neat to come and kind of see that from the back end. And that's why this conversation is really fun.
And you are only invited to do so, Halsey. We're very happy to show the company and show what we are doing to passionate people like you are.
I think it's definitely will happen for sure. I think, I'm clearly excited for Airbus, and I know MHM, of course, is so excited to always be sharing what you guys are doing and how you're moving the industry forward. I had the chance to talk to Bruno at Heli Expo. We had a one-on-one in-person podcast, which was incredible. So just very excited to continue to work with you guys. In the beginning of the podcast here, I mentioned that, MHM was essentially celebrating 50 years of the A-Star, which is pretty crazy to me. To be honest, I didn't realize that the program had been around that long. What is it, in your opinion, about the A-Star and now the H125? And we can even, of course, encapsulate the H130 into this discussion as well, because I think it's all kind of in that same family. What is it about the platform? What is the DNA, as you said earlier, of this helicopter that has given it such longevity, 50 years?
Alors, it's true that you're highlighting something that is worth mentioning when you say that it's hard to believe that the program has been around for so long. I think it's just naturally because what are the H125 and the H130 today, so the so-called light helicopters family of product, those aircraft are just completely different in a way, from what they were only a couple of years ago. But still, as you mentioned, and we start by that, there is a DNA that is there that we try to keep, and it is part of the product approach that we have. Those aircraft, are very often tools that are used by our customers to perform a certain mission. So this is, I think, the way, and I'm sure that you are also as a pilot of it, you understand. We talk about passion, we talk about, fascinating job, and this is true, and it won't change. But at some point, also, those aircraft, those helicopters are used as tools to perform a certain mission. And this is the way we have to see them. And I think that one of the very important things that, is valued by our clients for the single engine family, and this is the ability to have aircraft that are simple to operate, that are available, and that can perform even in very harsh conditions. So that's why, I've caricatured that also again a little bit, but I think that maybe the DNA of the light helicopters is this ability to perform a wide range of missions, it's very complex environments, and still being competitive. So this is something that is part of the DNA. So that's something that this is something that we are trying to maintain. But at the same time, as you said, those aircraft are completely different from what they are only a couple of years ago. And we've seen in the last years some evolutions, whether it is in terms of performance, the performance improvement that we had on an already very performing aircraft. To imagine that in 2005, landing on top of the world. But since then, we have even improved, the engine performance. Recently, we announced, the power upgrade. And so together, combined with the BLR FastFin add-on, on the tail boom, you can have between 100 and 150 kilo of additional payload. So only on the performance side, we've gone quite far. But also, if you think cockpit, look at what is the cockpit today of this helicopter family, full glass cockpit. It could be a dual glass cockpit also, if necessary, to perform training missions. All the systems to facilitate the job of the pilots, whether it is 3-axis autopilot, already developed on the 125, on the way for the 130. All the awareness, situation awareness improvement systems that exist as well. Maybe I'm going now too much into technical details for this specific question, but it's true that the aircraft was made to be a simple, versatile, and mission efficient one, and we built on this, and we added everything that makes it the state of the art, very capable, and living with its time aircraft.
Yeah, I mean, they're incredible machines. Unfortunately, I don't actually have a lot of A-Star time, but I do have around 1,000 hours in the 130. I flew Grand Canyon tours, and fly both the B4 and the T2. So similar platforms, obviously different engines and some different things about it, but each helicopter was so extremely capable. And people would think you're flying in the Grand Canyon, it can't be that difficult, right? And during the winter, obviously temperatures are nice and comfortable and it's cool. The helicopter's happy. But in the summertime, we're talking of temperatures well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And, you're landing at higher altitudes in very hot weather. And it always felt really good to be in a helicopter that was able to perform to that. I never felt uncomfortable on a hot day climbing out of Quartermaster Canyon. It was never an issue. The helicopter did so good. And we're talking about temperatures so hot that when we would land at the bottom of the canyon, if we didn't properly put the sunshades on and the sun got through to the collective would be so hot that it would be hard to touch, really, right? So, I mean, the helicopter did phenomenal in those conditions. So I loved flying the 130. It was such a neat experience. Kind of my first full-time turbine helicopter as well. So that was really special, and I kind of have a special place in my heart for the 130. And so I'm grateful for Airbus on that. I'm hoping that I can get some 125 experience sooner than later. One of the points that you brought up in your last conversation there was always pushing forward. I mean, you guys landed the helicopter on top of Mount Everest in 2005. One would say like you won the fight at that point. Like, no other helicopter a single engine helicopter has come close to being able to do anything like that. What has continued and what has been the marching orders from Airbus to keep pushing the bar forward? I mean, it's incredible that even since that time, you guys just continue. So what are you telling your team on a daily basis to keep this innovation?
And I think we talked about DNA earlier. We talked about the DNA of the job. We talked about the DNA of the helicopter. Maybe I can mention that it's part of the DNA of the company to innovate. I think it's a fact. Precisely, you talked to Bruno recently, and he highlighted, in the podcast precisely that it's part of our culture. But we don't innovate only to innovate. We obviously innovate to create value for our clients. And I think, when you mix both of them, this is where potentially you are doing the right thing. So if we come now to the light helicopters family, we definitely have a certain category of clients that are really looking for the pure, performance of the aircraft. What some of the clients are really performing most of their mission are cargo missions, lifting loads very often, in hot and high environments. So here we are really talking, on the pure performance of the aircraft. And this is quite a significant number of our clients. So, this is one of the drivers of what is the aircraft today. And that is also for sure benefiting also the rest of the customers. You can convert also this performance into a mission capability. But at the end of the day, this is, our deep understanding of what the customers need and our ability to innovate that's pushed us to spend, our energy in the right direction. And we made it for the performance part of the aircraft. And you took a few examples, and I have maybe a few more that I can highlight later of what the aircraft, is being made by our clients every day. But it's also true, for the rest of the innovations. I was mentioning earlier, the cockpit part. At some point, not every client needs to land on top of the Everest every day. They need to perform missions. You remember maybe the H125 that was on our booth at HeliExpo, a police machine, highly equipped. So those are very different types of missions. But here also with a single engine, you need to be able to fly at night in a quite aggressive environment where pilots are under stress. So, here the value that we will create and the innovation that we will perform is going to be rather in all the systems that we will be able to install to remove some workload from the pilot and be able for him to concentrate on performing the mission. So again, this is all about, so either the piloting system, everything that has to do with the traffic control, but also all the mission capabilities, either the searchlight, the night cameras or the hailers, which at the end of the day are really converting this aircraft into a tool. So, again, to make it short, I think that we are, as part of our DNA, a strong tendency of innovating, but making it, again, useful and practical for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's proof in the pudding. Again, the fact that I kind of feel like the fight was won in 2005, but you continue to just build a better and better, program and continue to innovate is incredible. And it's really exciting for pilots and operators, the end user like me. It's great to know that you as an OEM are innovating and wanting to always be better and always create new things within the aircraft to make it more capable. You mentioned earlier one of my favorite modifications, if that's the right even word to say, is the BLR FastFin, and I'm curious to hear how does it work when there's a third party that's building a modification for an aircraft and essentially creating an STC, in this case the BLR FastFin, which is a modification on the tail section, and it is helping with the decreasing, I guess, the pedal or the power pedal required. How does Airbus work with that third party in order to have a successful outcome? What does that look like?
Alors, it's true that given the rather strong commercial success that we had in the past years, we do have a fleet of more than 5,000 light helicopters flying worldwide. So it's true that there is a community, there is an ecosystem that is very dynamic around the light helicopters. You mentioned pilots, but here we are mentioning, I think, the community of the different entities that are designing optionals to be installed on the light helicopters. So sometimes we are doing it ourselves internally. We do have some design capabilities, but sometimes, obviously, and this is a good thing, there are some design offices belonging to our own clients or there are companies obviously specialized into that are making their own designs and certifying their design under the so-called concept of STC. And this is a really good thing. It's really positive. It allows our clients to benefit for a wider spectrum of mission capabilities. And to answer your question, what we do in this case, but again, we know we have a clear roadmap. We know where we want to go. We know what is important in terms of priorities, in terms of improvement of the aircraft. So we make the decision. We look at the resources that we have. We look at what exists on the market. And if we have precisely a company that has a design or that is on the way to design something that makes sense for the customer, that makes sense in terms of product policy for us, but then we got in touch with this entity and we do a technical evaluation from a design perspective, from a flight test perspective of their system. And if the technical evaluation is positive, then we have the ability, to propose it as well as Airbus helicopters. So that's why the process is this one. It's basically first a technical, analysis that needs to be made, and then there is like always a commercial agreement between the company to put this optional in the catalog.
Yeah, the FastFin is really cool, and anytime me specifically that works kind of in the used helicopter market for my day job, if I see an A-Star with the FastFin, I'm very excited about that. I love that modification. What are some of the other modifications that have kind of changed the game a little bit, like the FastFin has? What are some modifications that you're excited about, whether they're third party or internal to Airbus?
So it's a very wide question. So I'll try to take a few of them because, as I mentioned precisely, we see that this aircraft can benefit from a wide range of optionals, either made internally or externally. But now, to answer your question, I think that autopilots is indeed something that we saw appearing on the light helicopters in general over the last years. First 2-axis, now 3-axis. So we've delivered already now a couple of H125 equipped with a 3-axis autopilot made by Garmin. Very successful one, and we just unveiled also during HeliExpo that we are partnering with the same company to design a 3-axis autopilot on the H130. So I think that this is something that is really appreciated by the pilots. It goes into direction of, as we said, removing workload when relevant, and allowing the pilot to concentrate on the mission. If we, on a similar note as the BLR, maybe you heard about the maximum pilot view kit that is also proposed under STC. It's basically, a full glass right-hand window, but also a floor with a kind of integrated bubble. Again, the H125 is widely used for air work. So, the pilot has the possibility to extend his view on the ground, on the environment, on the load that he's carrying with this optional, but also it allows the passengers, when doing a passenger's flight, to have a greater view of the environment when enjoying a passenger flight. It's also a good example. And then there is one development I cannot prevent myself from mentioning. It's ongoing. We unveiled the prototype during Heli Expo. That's the IFR version of the H125, also made under STC with Genesis. We made the first flight. The design is finalized, and we're on the way to certification this year. So also, a very exciting improvements on the lights. It's a new type of mission that could be performed by single engine. As you know, it's a pretty new types of use for this category of helicopter. But we see also that clients are asking for it. So that's why we are now making ourselves ready under STC. But again, it's going to be an STC that is going to be validated by Airbus, obviously, and meeting all the standards that our clients need to have on their aircraft.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and I'm glad that you brought that up. It was something that I did want to talk about. Now, something that I'm curious about is when it comes to IFR, is that pinpointed for operators like me here in the United States, or is that something that other countries are also asking for? Because I do know that single engine IFR is something that's already occurring here in the States. Is the rest of the world open to that, or is it a little bit more closed off?
Alors, there are, I would say, mostly limitations in Europe under the EASA regulation, where commercial air transport operations are not allowed with a single engine flying IFR. So there are indeed some restrictions in EASA. But first of all, you mentioned the United States, which is one of the countries where we have. This is the country where we are most light helicopters flying.
Totally.
So it's a significant market for us. A country where there is a lot of experience in using the helicopter. A market that is very mature. So for sure, a market that is ready to use the IFR or to have pilots being IFR rated and flying on single engine. So mostly for medical evacuation mission. But also could be for private missions and public services, police missions. So here you will basically extend, the capacity of the aircraft being able to fly in adverse weather conditions in particular, and maximize the availability of the aircraft. But we can mention also other countries in the world, Brazil being one of them, and you have a lot of other countries in the world that are somehow, following rather the FAA regulation than the EASA one, and that are very open to the use of single engine in IFR variant. And then there is also another segment that has a specific regulation. Obviously, this is the military segment. We see also that some military operators are asking for an IFR single engine, mostly for training purposes. So that's why, for all those reasons, there is definitely a market that is still at its very beginning, but a market that we see growing.
Yeah, no, it's really neat, and not only is it for the aircraft availability, and that's often something that I'm very fascinated with helicopters is the idea that helicopters do so many things. including saving lives. I was actually an air medical pilot and was fortunate enough to be part of that here in the United States. It was a VFR program, so I was not flying IFR, but even just being able to be part of that mission to bring my skill set, my education to helping other people on their worst day, is really neat. So to be able to have an IFR platform, which could allow minimums to change and policies and procedures to change with having that IFR capability, I think is really neat. And even in VFR programs, just having the autopilot, a 2-axis or now a 3-axis autopilot, I think is an incredible tool. Not only is it a tool that helps decrease workload, as you mentioned, and allow the pilot to really open up their horizons a little bit and be able to be more present in every part of the mission. But something that I find extremely helpful and useful is I think that the autopilot is saving lives. When we talk about inadvertent IMC, every pilot, we're faced with making decisions. And sometimes you make really, really good decisions, and yet you still end up in a bad situation, specifically when it comes to weather in the United States, flying at nighttime, single pilot. So being able to have that autopilot, even if you did everything right, you could still end up in the clouds. So to be able to have that as kind of your co-pilot and work through an inadvertent entry into IMC, I think is incredible. So as a pilot, thank you. And I'm grateful to Airbus and Garmin and the other providers that are putting these tools in helicopters, because it's saving lives. I guarantee it. I have no doubt that is causing less accidents, which is obviously so important to me and the entire industry. That's my soapbox. I'm sorry. I just get real passionate and very excited about that. One of the things that I imagine for your job is an idea that you're very intertwined and connected with your customer base. I'm assuming that you on a regular basis are reaching out to owners, operators, getting feedback. With the A-Star and the 125 and the 130, of course, being such a diverse helicopter, meaning that it's can be used for law enforcement and air medical and utility and E&G and ag, whatever, every single helicopter mission almost. How do you kind of juggle that? Because I know that different operators may want different things for the helicopter. How do you make sure that everyone stays happy and feels good about the aircraft?
It's a very good question. Thank you, Halsey. We talked earlier, about one of the main elements of the job is precisely making decisions, and deciding on priorities. So this is part of the challenge that we have. It's a very nice challenge. It's a positive challenge. Is the fact that yes, indeed, the light helicopters H125, H130, and both of them are used in a very wide spectrum of missions. We really think, that H125 is a higher work. It is a true workhorse, and I think, it has absolutely no competitor in terms of pure performance capacity. But look at the success that it has on the public services segment, the police segment in the US, but also on the EMS. Same for the H130. It's a very nice passenger transport helicopter, but at the same time, we have clients that are performing cargo with the aircraft, medical evacuation. So for both aircraft, definitely the challenge that we have is to make sure that all those clients can perform their missions. So basically, the approach that we are having, as I said earlier, is to care for the standard of the aircraft, to keep it, as simple and as light and as competitive as possible. It's easy to say, it's harder to make, but this is why the team in general is doing and has been doing over the years a great job. That in every decision we make, we care to keep this basic standard aircraft, as lean as possible. And then the second element of answer is precisely the one that you mentioned also by talking about, the STCs, is to ensure to have a wide catalog of optionals, whether made internally or validated and made by third parties, but this is the way we found the answer we found to this request of having clients being so diverse in their missions.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's essentially you've built an amazing foundation and an amazing platform, and then there's so many different add-ons, whether they're in-house or STCs. It's incredible what you can create and how many different mission profiles. I kind of want to go back to you just a little bit. I know that we've talked in length now about you orchestrating, and you're not necessarily an expert in every faction of what's going on in the process, but you have a kind of a holistic or a whole approach view of what's happening and leading the program forward. I know that recently you have been working on and completing your helicopter, I think private pilot's license. What has that experience been like for you, and how does that make you better at your current position?
Indeed, no, I had the chance to do the PPL course, and I flew a few hours, and I'm still flying. My license, I'm still current, actually, and I was happy to be in the air. But I'm a private pilot. I don't intend to be a commercial pilot, and I care a lot for myself. But for sure, I did that for passion. That's the first thing. And I love, and I'm sure you share it. The feeling that you have when you are in the air and when you are in the air in charge and in command. But yes, as a side effect of doing this course, there are strong benefits for my job. It's not the same when you are sitting, when you are on the driver's seat, when you are on the pilot seat, and when you are making decisions. So you have a lot of elements to take into account to perform your mission. Sometimes that can be small details. And that maybe as an aircraft manufacturer, you could consider it as a detail, but that are not details, for the operator or for the pilot, but for the operator, more generally speaking. So I think that doing the course helped me a lot, to see this side of the business, this side of the activity, the side of the operation, everything that has to do also, with the planification, with the decision making, and all the elements about weather management, about in teamwork also, with all the teams involved in preparing a mission. And so I think, definitely this has helped me a lot to grow the understanding. And I'm obviously unable to speak as equal to most of our clients that are maybe like you know better our own product. But it's true that I can sometimes grab maybe a little bit better what they mention, what they have in mind when they mention a certain problematic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I think being an engineer is obviously very different than being a pilot. And I think being able to have both pilot background and engineer background is a way to have synchrony, to be able to have two skills come together to have a positive outcome. Not to mention flying helicopters is just super fun. I don't know about you, but my favorite thing about flying an aircraft is picking the helicopter up from the ground. That initial raising the collective, getting light, and just pulling it into a hover. I don't care how many flight hours you have. At least for me, that never gets old. It's just such an incredible feeling and experience. Flying a helicopter is truly as close as we can get as humans to flying ourselves.
Indeed. Yeah. No, there is something magic. There is something magic about flying in general, but it's true that there is something very specific about the helicopter flight.
Yeah, no, it is incredible. I mean, I always used to joke with my Grand Canyon passengers that, the way the helicopter works is PFM. We'll do the censored version here is pure freaking magic. It's all these components that come together, and we were going out to the world's most beautiful creation of the Grand Canyon, and we were doing it, in my opinion, in the coolest man-made product, which is a helicopter. Talk to me just a little bit about the production. I'm just curious. I honestly don't have great knowledge, and I'm sure my listeners maybe don't either, of where are these helicopters put together? Is there multiple factories, or is some of the production happening here if I'm ordering a helicopter and I'm in the United States, what does that look like, and what are the different setups that Airbus has?
Indeed, as we mentioned earlier, we've been lucky enough to see a quite strong commercial success in the past, and this is not only by coincidence. So the first thing, the main location where the helicopters are produced is here in Marignane, so our headquarters in France. That's the main assembly line, and the historical one. But also, we've been able in the past to build some strong industrial partnership in the countries where we think it makes most sense, or be more than a partnership. Actually, we've decided to invest in the countries where we think it makes sense. So we mentioned the United States. We also have an assembly line in Mississippi, in Columbus. It's an Airbus Helicopters own entity. And this assembly line is there to serve the North American market, so United States and Canada. And again, no secret, as I mentioned earlier, very strong market, very mature market. And so that's why, having the industrial needs locally has helped also to boost the market demand, but has also help to develop the full ecosystem that our clients need to operate. Third assembly line in Brazil, for the same reason than the US, maybe on a smaller scale. But the assembly line in Brazil has been there for more than 40 years, actually, and it has produced more than 400 helicopters,
Wow.
which is quite impressive. I mentioned it earlier. Brazil is one also of these markets that is very dynamic in general for helicopters, but in particular for the single engine family. And your question is also coming right to the point, because maybe you read the news in the last month that we made the announcement of the setup of a fourth assembly line for the light helicopters in India, in a country we strongly believe in, and where we hope and we are striving to reproduce, the success story we had in the US and in Brazil, to accompany and to boost the market demand.
Yeah, what are you guys seeing with India, and what are some of the exciting parts of going into India, and what are some of the hurdles that you as an OEM can expect? And I don't know much about the market there, to be honest, and I don't know much about the infrastructure. Is it getting to a place where it's set up to be able to support helicopters operating?
Alors, India is precisely this country that has already a very strong historical relationship with aviation. It's nothing new, but we really saw recently a dynamism that is stronger than the one we saw in the past, and it's true in particular in the helicopter market. So this may be one of the reasons why you haven't heard a lot about the helicopter market. It's what we consider still very small, compared to the potential and compared to the dynamism of the Indian economy. So that's why, and this is where everything started by doing this consideration. We do think that there should be a very high demand for helicopters in the next years. We believe there will be a demand for approx 1,000 helicopters for the next 20 years in India, and half of it, so 500 approx, should be for single engine helicopters. And mentioning infrastructure, so on one side, yes, it's a country where we already have some helicopters flying, and for quite a while, very successfully for different types of missions. But there are a lot of segments of operations that are really where the helicopters are not used at all, or where the helicopter is underused. So I'm thinking here about everything that has to do with public services, for example. So medical evacuation, police forces. The use of helicopters is extremely limited, if not inexistent. But at the same time, India is a country that has a very strong and capable health system. So that's why here, we see an area of growth in the use of helicopter for medical evacuation that is quite significant. I can also give you a concrete example. We announced recently also a nice contract with an operator in India that just bought a H125 and a H130 under a very specific governmental scheme that is financing the use of helicopters to allow the access to some very remote areas to people. So it's all about connecting people, providing connection with areas that otherwise could not be reached if not by the helicopter. So this is also an area, a segment where we see that there is a market demand that should grow soon. So that's why, all in all, the market is quite low as of today. It's dynamic. The potential is huge, and we want to be part of this story. We just want to, observe it. We just want to be only part of it. We really want to be, one of the main stakeholders that is supporting locally the different entities in developing their helicopters' capabilities.
It's incredible. It's very exciting. It's always anytime we can expand the helicopter reach and touch and network is incredible. And obviously, I agree with Airbus. I think that India makes sense to be an emerging market for more and more helicopter operations, and their economy will be greatly impacted by that. It's amazing how much helicopters play a role in everyday infrastructure. I was talking to some friends recently. We were trying to list everything that we think helicopters provide, at least here in North America. Spraying crops, power line patrol, utility operations, right away for power lines and things like that, air medical, aerial burning, firefighting. I mean, the list just goes on and on. It's so much of our daily lives are impacted by helicopters. And I don't think the general public realizes that. So I think it's neat for you guys to be going into this new market. I think it's only going to benefit India as a country.
It's a virtuous circle, as you just mentioned. The country is developing. It goes with the more use of helicopters, and the use of helicopters will actually also help certain sectors of the economy or of the public services to develop. So it's really a virtuous circle we are aiming at.
Yeah, no, it's incredible and amazing, and I'm excited to continue to follow along on that journey. As we kind of wrap up here, Jerome, first and foremost, thank you for this conversation, and thank you for joining the podcast. Again, it's so neat for me to be able to have these conversations. That's one of the coolest parts of doing the podcast, actually, is just being able to talk to different people in different parts of the industry. And I haven't had the opportunity to talk with anyone at any OEM that has your position. So this has been really enlightening and very fun for me. 50 years down, and obviously, I'm guessing that even though you would probably like to, you're not going to be at Airbus for maybe the next 50 years, but you're going to be a part of building that foundation for the next 50 years. So what does the future look like for you and for Airbus? What is the kind of the near-term and long-term vision that you have for the light helicopter program?
It's a very, very interesting question. We see a bright future for the light helicopters, and more than seeing, we're obviously doing our best to make it happen. Actually, when I think about the 50 years, I made myself the question. The first thing that comes to my mind is a feeling of pride, obviously, for the people that we mentioned, for the community, that has made those aircraft that are designed, produced, but also that are operating mostly those aircraft. But I think that the second feeling, and maybe the one that I care the most, is a feeling of responsibility. Is a feeling of responsibility of what we should do and what I should do personally in this position in terms of decision making, to make sure that we keep on proposing those helicopters that are really bringing value to our clients. So that's why we are really investing heavily on the light helicopters evolution. So we talked about the IFR version of the H125, but there is also a lot of work that is being made with everything that has to do, with situational awareness. We talk about the traffic control in particular, all those things. There is one thing that maybe we haven't highlighted so much because it's less seen and less perceived maybe by by the public than the performance. It's all the elements that you need to have actually your aircraft available to make it fly. And here I'm talking about, the reliability of the aircraft, the reduced maintenance. For example, what we did recently, if we can extend, the time between a maintenance, or if we can facilitate the way to perform it, but also the training part. We have invested quite some energy also in making sure that the H125 has a simulator based on virtual reality. I'm sure you heard about the Love Dynamics H125 simulator. So, beyond the aircraft itself, where we will keep on investing, in making it, if possible, even more mission capable. We will also keep on investing on everything that really supports, the operations and making sure that the aircraft, are available and that the people can train, whether pilots, mechanics, with the last generation tools like the virtual reality.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting. And I think we're at a very exciting time for helicopters and helicopter aviation. I think we're all on board to not only continue to create amazing aircraft that can do incredible things, but also do incredible things while maintaining the highest level of safety. There's no secret that flying helicopters can be dangerous, right? And I think we all have a responsibility to make it a safer industry. And I know that Airbus is making so many commitments to safety, training mechanics, training pilots, new training with virtual reality, which is incredible. I've had an experience, not with the 125, but other platforms and being able to experience the virtual reality. Not only is it an extremely effective training tool, but it's very cost effective compared to the larger full motion simulators that we're kind of used to now. So I think that that's going to open up a whole new level of training for pilots. Like I said earlier, enhancements in autopilot, whether it's 2-axis or 3-axis, glass cockpit, all of these things are commitments to making the industry safer. And that's what I'm all about. So Jerome, thank you so much for joining the podcast. And thank you for talking about your position and what Airbus is doing. I'm so excited to have this opportunity. And I'm hoping that I can come to France and actually see it for myself someday. So I think we should try to make that happen if you're open to that.
Halsey, you are more than welcome. Actually, this is a part of the job that is very much interesting, as you mentioned earlier. This is the connection, with the community. And this connection, we have it as a company. I'm trying to have it personally. And I have, through different opportunities, whether it is, air shows, exhibitions like Heli Expo, like I mentioned earlier. Also, we have customers coming to Marignane. So traveling when necessary, I have the ability to connect and exchange. And I actually enjoy very much this time. It's very useful to maximize my understanding and make sure that then we take the right decision in terms of product evolution. But also, it's always interesting to see, the use of our nice machines and the incredible missions that our clients are performing in very challenging missions, whether it is, beyond the Arctic Circle or in any desert in the world. The helicopters are performing incredibly. And I'm really always happy, to share those nice stories and hear from the people that make actually the reality of our product, those nice stories.
The best part of the industry is the people. I say it all the time. I love this industry, not only because I love helicopters, but I truly love the people, the men and the women that make it special. And there's so much to it, right? That's something that's opened my eyes doing the podcast is, I was so much a pilot, and now being able to kind of open my horizons and meet and connect with so many different people like yourself is incredible. I actually have to say, too, I have to share an experience real fast. I made the promotional video, the video that was sent over that you guys sent me to kind of talk about the light program and the light helicopter program. At the very end, there's a above shot of two 130s kind of on a cliff with tents. And that was a helicopter camping trip that I was on actually with my friend York Gallen. I fly heli. If you don't follow York on Insta, I highly recommend it. But talk about the most incredible experience of my life, facilitated by an Airbus H130 T2. We flew around southern Utah, spent a couple days flying in the most beautiful, the most incredible, life-changing experience I've had, and it was all made possible because of Airbus, and in this case the H130. We had a couple H130s actually, so that was super cool. It was fun to see that in the video. To our listeners, thank you so much for listening to MHM Publishing and Vertical. Thank you for creating the HeliCASTS platform. The HeliCASTS platform is what allows me to have conversations like this with guys like Jerome. So please continue to listen and support so we can continue to have awesome conversations. And congratulations to Airbus on 50 years. Again, this is a co-collaboration, so please make sure that you check out the article that also talks about the 50-year anniversary. Vertical is so excited to be a part of this with Airbus, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Jerome, thank you so much.
Thank you to you. Bye-bye.